Good morning, everybody. We are going to call the meeting of the Human Services Committee to order. Karen, please call the roll.
Chair Swarzy.
Here.
Member Childress. Member Garcia. Here. Member Desart. Here. Member Galassi. Here. Member LaPlante.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
All right. With regards to my comments, a couple things I want to mention. So the Small Human Services Grant portal came to a close last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, 2 Saturdays ago. And I did speak with the finance staff about that. They, let's see, we received 72 non-duplicative applications totaling $1.5 million. This number does not mean that all applicants do qualify. But that's who they received applications from. So the finance staff is going to be going through those applications to determine who meets the requirements. And then we will have that information at our next human services meeting. So at that point, so two weeks from today, right, we will discuss the next steps for that. So just to let you know. Yes.
Do you have any idea if each district, like where the applications kind of?
I don't have the numbers, but I have the, I don't have the application numbers, but I have the amount requested.
Okay.
I'll share that with you right now. If you guys want to hear it?
Yep.
Now, each district was allocated $175,000. So here's what we have. District 1, we have $192,000 in requests. Now, again, remember, these are the initial requests. Maybe some of these may or may not qualify. So this is just District 2 has $170,000 worth of requests. District 3 has just under $101,000 worth of requests. District 4, $393,000 worth of requests. District 5, $450,000 worth of requests. District 6, just under $113,000 worth of requests. And then there are some requests that looks like they may fall outside of DuPage County, or at least a big portion of them. So again, that we'll get better information. So with that being said, there will have to be some discussion amongst the county board members. Obviously, District 4 and 5 have more than 175,000, and some of the other districts don't even have 175,000 requests. So I think that opens the door for discussion between those boards, county board members. So, but more information coming in a couple weeks. Any other questions on this? Okay. Just something else, I'm going to ask Vice Chair Garcia to discuss a request that we got from the DuPage Senior Citizen Council, which I think is very exciting. So, sorry, I didn't prepare you on this.
You did not.
She's like, what?
But I can share it if you would rather.
I know. These are my notes. Just really quickly, the DuPage Senior Services Committee has approached myself and Greg Schwarzy, or Chair Schwarzy, and then I believe Member Chaplin was also. We hand out the meals for the senior services, like when they hand them out, and they had said to us they were in need of a space for their Meals on Wheels, the meal preparation, to help with the areas in Warrenville and in Wheaton and Winfield and West Chicago, I think it was, right? It's about 20,000 people that they're going to feed. And so I've been working with facilities. I'm going to bring it to the county board on the 8th. We've got working with facilities. I've been able to find a spot where the juvenile correction center was across the street. There is a small area that fits their needs. We had a tour last week and they said that it should work. We're going to ask for a little bit of money to just change up a sink, I believe, and a little bit of electrical there. And then they hopefully will be able to use that. So it will be hopefully used by them and be able to help a lot of people who need Meals on Wheels, and then also to have the home visits so they can see the well-being of the seniors. So
Do they feed 20,000 people daily with single
no, I think
meals
it's a year.
or weekly?
I think it's a year.
yearly, 20,000.
I don't have that information. I will have it at the August 8th, a meeting, and I can answer that question for you, or I can let you know later.
Yeah, from there.
It's a space that's been unused for, I don't know how many years, yeah, and it's not finished. I mean, the floors aren't finished, though, I mean, the walls are the walls, but, so it needs it needs somewhere around $30,000. That's a rough estimate by Tim Harbaugh, and it needs you know, some work to get it livable, basically, but then we would have the opportunity to just, charge the DuPage Senior Citizen Councils $10 a year. We have a history of doing that in the county with certain entities. So it's a great, we were very lucky because, you know, Paula jumped right on this when she was asked, and sure enough, Tim's like, yeah, this place has been empty for quite a few years and we can do it. So
I thought there was some other use for that. Would that be use? I mean, I'm glad to hear that this is what it would be going to.
I think originally this was where the CRC was gonna be planned
Oh,
to be
okay.
built.
Okay.
And now that since they're building their own building over by the health center department and Linda Graza Center, that I think that this is now still open and available.
yes,
Is there any influx of coordination with the townships and stuff? Because some of them do that Meals on Wheels and meal prep, number one. And number two, the bigger organizations like Loaves and Fishes, I mean, usually they have a lot of space and stuff like
this
that.
specifically would be a DuPage Senior Citizen Council, and I would imagine that they have their relationships with the entities you're talking about, but this would be specifically for the DuPage Senior Citizen Council to prepare these meals. So this wouldn't be a place where the residents come in to get meals, but it would be the volunteers come in, pick up the meals, prepare the meals, and then obviously load their car up and then deliver those meals. But it would be specifically for DuPage Senior Citizen Council Meals on Wheels program.
They bring all their own equipment and everything, so we don't have to provide any kind of cooking equipment or anything like that. They bring everything in. So we just needed to give them space, which hopefully we're able to do. So big good support on that.
Do any members have any other comments or questions? Okay, let's move on to our agenda then. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes, item 23-2513 from the Human Services Committee regular meeting of July 11, 2023. We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve item FIR 16923, acceptance and appropriation of the Illinois Department of Human Services Supportive Housing Program Grant Plan Year 24 Intergovernmental Agreement number FCSCH 00352 in the amount of $137,747. We have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Take a motion to approve item FIR 17523, acceptance and appropriation of additional funding for the Illinois Department of Human Services Supportive Housing Grant Plan Year 23 in the amount, the change from $137,747 to $151,563, an increase of $13,816. We have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? Yes.
And just a question, and this is wonderful that we had a 10% increase on this, but how did that happen? Normally when a grant is given, How did the 10?
I think the state just had leftover funds in the PY 23 program. And so
Fantastic.
towards the end of the program year, if they have additional funds, they send it to you.
That's awesome.
They
Thank
then
you.
have to spend very quickly.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Jane.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve item FIR 17023, acceptance and appropriation of additional funding for the Aging Case Coordination Unit, Plan Year 23 in the amount of $299,567. We have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. On to DuPage Care Center. I'll take a motion to approve item HSP 6523, a recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Lakeshore Dairy Inc. for fluid dairy for the DuPage Care Center residents, cafeteria and cafes located in the JTK Administration Building and Judicial Office Facility for the period of September 1st, 23 through August 31st of 24 for a contract not to exceed $83,000. And this is the first of 3 one-year optional renewals. We have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll take a motion to approve item 23-2514, a recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to ARXIUM Inc. for the supplies for the Fast Pack Elite Medication Dispensing Machine for the pharmacy at the DuPage Care Center for the period August 16, 23 through August 15, 24, for a contract total not to exceed $26,500 per sole source. We have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, yes. She told me, Aaron told me that earlier.
Member
Aye.
Garcia.
Thank you.
Aye.
Member Desart.
Aye.
Member Galassi.
Aye.
Chair Swarzy.
Aye. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Karen. I'll take a motion to approve item 23-2515, HSCO 0009-823, an amendment to contract 6005-0001 serve issued to LifeScan Laboratories of Illinois for patient phlebotomy and lab services for the DuPage Care Center to extend contract through March 19, 2024, and to increase the encumbrance in the amount of $32,500 for a new contract amount not to exceed $67,500, an increase of 92.86%. We have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. On to travel, I'll take a motion to combine items 8A, 8B, 8C, and 8D, which are all
So
travel.
moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I'll take the motion to approve item 23-2516, a travel request for housing and community development planner to attend the National Association for County, Community, and Economic Development Annual Educational Conference and Training in Salt Lake City, Utah, from September 18, 23 through September 21st, 23. Expenses to include registration, transportation, lodging, miscellaneous expenses, and per diems for the approximate total of $2,334. I'll move to approve item 23-2517. Travel request for weatherization assessor to attend the Healthy Home Evaluator mandated training in Champaign, Illinois from August 6, 23 through August 11th, 2023. Expenses to include lodging, miscellaneous expenses, and per diems for approximate total of $1,699.39. Move on item 23-2518, a travel request for senior housing community development planner to attend the annual Housing Action Illinois Conference in Bloomington, Illinois from October 19, 23 through October 20th, 23. Expenses to include registration, transportation, lodging, and per diems for approximate total amount of $633.50. And I'll move on item 23-2519, a travel request for community services director to attend National Association for County, Community, and Economic Development Annual Conference and Training in Salt Lake County, Utah from September 18, 23 through September 21st, 23. Expenses to include registration, transportation, lodging, miscellaneous expenses, and per diems for the approximate total amount of $2,279. Now thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I didn't phrase everything. I moved on some of them and I asked for motions on others. But I'm asking for a motion and we have a motion and we have a second.
And I just want to comment, if
Yes.
I could, that all of these are grant funded, which I think is awesome.
Thank you for pointing that out. So we have, oh, yes.
I know, didn't we talk about this? I know we talked about the last human services and then it came up at the board meeting about giving you guys some,
Member
leeway
Desart
to not.
actually brought it up on the
Okay,
board
oh, that's
floor.
right. That's right.
The status, as I understand it, is that Jason is working on a draft. He has sent it to the auditor. The auditor had some comments. And I think the auditor has sent it back to Jason. So I think they're working on it.
Have you seen the draft?
I have not, I've
Okay.
asked that because we do probably 70, certainly under county board jurisdiction, I think my department does at least 75% of all the travel. So I've asked to have the
Was
opportunity
it
to
a
look at
dollar
it.
value that it's?
I don't know what
Oh,
the
okay.
threshold is going to be.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to be, when I started here, in-state travel only needed parent committee approval. Out of state needed to go all the way up to the board. So that's one way to do it. Could be a dollar threshold. I don't know what the current thinking is.
Okay, I just noticed there was also something in JPS for like $600, so. it seems-
Yeah, and we do a lot of travel, and to Member Desart's point, I would say 99% of it is grant funded, because we're traveling to learn how to effectively manage all the grant programs that we can.
And my point in bringing it up is that we hire our directors and we trust our directors to decide who needs to travel where and when, for what conferences or for what training. And we should give that to our directors and trust that they're doing the right thing.
I appreciate that, and I don't disagree.
And I fully agree, so thank you for bringing that up at the board meeting as well. I remember, I just remembered it had come up at the board meeting.
Yeah, the travel policy would fall under the finance committee as sort of the parent committee for where the discussion will be. So,
And I echo that Jason did tell me he's working on it.
yeah. So I don't know what the thought is in terms of timeline bringing it forward. I had a conversation with Auditor White the other day about some travel related things. And his concern was making sure that anything that our policy accurately reflects whatever's in the IRS regulations about, reimbursement of travel expenses, business expenses.
Thank you, Member Galassi. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. On to informational, I move to combine items 9A, 9B, and 9C under informational.
Second.
I made the motion.
You did.
I moved, second by Member Dessart. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then I will move to receive and place on file item 232520. GPN 04223 fiscal year 22 continuum of care program competition. HMIS U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the amount of $188,556. Item 232521. GPN 4623. DHS Employment Barrier Reduction Program Plan Year 24 Illinois Association of Community Action Agencies, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in the amount of $45,600. And item 232522, GPN 4723 fiscal year 22 continuum of care program competition planning grant, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the amount of $170,370. Motion and second, questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much, everybody. And residency waivers, I see Janelle on TV. So Janelle, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good morning. We have 2 residency waivers today, and of our open beds, 5 have already been offered to DuPage County residents. Our first, so no DuPage County residents will be displaced with these 2 applicants. Our first applicant has never lived in DuPage County, but there are 5 relatives who do live in DuPage County for 34 years up to 56 years. And family has seen good reviews on our facility and would like, they like how close we are to their family members so that the resident will be, have more visits from family. So that's the first residency waiver.
I'll make a motion to approve this residency waiver to live at the care center.
Moved by Member Dessart.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Second.
Okay, second by Member Garcia, sure.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, how many open beds do we currently have?
We have 10 male and 21 female.
Thank you.
We have a motion, a second. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Janelle, go ahead.
The next applicant has never lived in DuPage County, but has a relative who lives in DuPage County for 50 years and a son who lived in DuPage County for 12 years. Applicant is currently on our short-term subacute rehab. Both sons work in DuPage County. They've heard nothing but great things about the facility and they would like their loved one placed here.
I'll make a motion to approve that one as well.
Second.
Motion, a second. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Care Center update, Janelle.
Certainly, yeah. So I mentioned a few meetings ago that we had some rhinovirus cases, which is rhino is nose or sinus. And we are seeing an issue with some rhinovirus cases. We're working closely with the health department. We have 2 units that we have under isolation, 1 north, 2 east for rhinovirus. And so on those units, the staff would need to wear a surgical mask, just as an FYI, anyone would need to wear a surgical mask. Working with those residents that are symptomatic or positive, you would need to wear full PPE like we did with COVID. So we had this not so long ago, we just have to work through it, but I just want to make sure you're all aware on the status of that. Any questions on that topic? Yes.
Do you know what are the symptoms, signs and symptoms of rhinovirus?
Probably very similar to COVID because when you have a rhinovirus situation, it all can cause like a postnasal drip, which also affects your airway. So obviously sinus issues, runny nose, and then it can also be cough and shortness of breath.
Thank you.
We are, since COVID, we're doing a respiratory panel much more often, and that tests for a multitude of things. So that's how we originally discovered the rhinovirus. So I'm guessing out in the community, it's pretty active, but people just don't know because it's like a cold, but not COVID. So.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to mention is our Fall Fest is coming up, and we are doing a virtual Fall Fest again this year. So that will be September 16th. So I know last year we had many board members partake in some of our wonderful products, apple slices, cake rolls, apple butter. We had the mums. We're going to do a resident art sale. And so again, I will be getting the forms out to you, but I wanted to get that in front of you as soon as possible. We will also have a raffle for quilts and baskets and gift certificates. So the virtual Fall Festival has been very successful for us. It's much less labor intensive, and it's actually resulted in more funds for our residents in our various programs.
Thank you, Janelle.
Yep.
Any questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
We'll go on to community services update with Mary Keating.
I do have my budget presentation, but before that, I kind of wanted to just mention a couple of other things. Somebody grab me a chair. Oh, sure. First, just an update on, I know Member Garcia had contacted me about the fire in Oak Brook Terrace. The majority of the tenants do have renters insurance. It's a higher income building, and so according to the Red Cross, everybody's covered. We did send somebody out from information. Well, we did two things yesterday. We provided 211 information to the management company, both in physical flyers, and then we also sent them a PDF so they could email any residents. Just let them know that 211 is available. We also sent one of our INR specialists out yesterday afternoon. She spent the afternoon out. There was only one resident who she talked to. Unfortunately, that resident is sort of an outlier financially. She had been financially supported by someone else and is no longer being supported. Unfortunately, allowed her renter's insurance to lapse. So she's got significant concerns. So we did an intake on her, and we'll get her connected with any resources that we have available to her.
So I actually spoke to another resident who said her son was part of the fire and also did not have renter's insurance. So can I have her?
Yeah,
Who should? Okay, who should I?
They can call 211.
Okay.
Just have them call 211, indicate that they were in that fire in Oak Brook Terrace and they'd like to get connected to any resources. That we
Okay.
have.
I have a question. So how many, I guess, how much funding can they receive if they don't have renters insurance? Is there a specific program, or, I mean, I'm just wondering what community service?
It depends. Well, sort of, we really have to do a full intake and find out what their situation is. Through our CSBG funds, we can provide some disaster assistance, often, first month's rent, security deposit to help them get rehoused. Through DSSA, which is we have a 501c3 attached to the department that's funded 95% by employee contributions. So through DSSA, we can provide some gift cards for Target, Jewel, that kind of thing. To be honest, there's not a whole lot. Clothing vouchers for an organization called Repeat Boutique that provides clothing. Like I said, those Target cards, those kinds of things can help with clothing. Sharing Connections is a furniture provider, a nonprofit furniture provider. You have to be referred by a partner agency, so we can give them a referral to Sharing Connections, so they can get some basic furniture. So we connect them with anything we possibly can.
You say it's not much, but it is actually. I mean,
Well, yeah,
they're little
right.
things, but
Right.
it really does help.
But they're all, so there's all kind of, there's no big pot of money that could come in and take the place of, you know, what you would be reimbursed for with renter's insurance.
Right.
And I appreciate you taking my phone call on a Sunday, so I
I was
appreciate
just
that.
coming off the golf course. If I had been actually playing, I might have sent you to voicemail. So.
I know, I think you talked to the same person, so I'm glad you're able to help that one person. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
good.
our INR person sat with her, also gave her a referral to the health department for their, and the health department's been alerted on their, I think it's called their trauma response strike team or something like that. So they have individuals available for folks who are, because even if you're financially okay, you know, it's quite an emotional toll to lose everything you own, so.
Yes.
I'm sorry, remember to start?
Oh, I had a question for you. It's not about the fire though. It's about something else. I'm wondering that there have been instances where people have been released from jail and they don't have money for transportation. They don't know where to go. They don't have any resources at all. And I think you and Liz were out there one day giving out food. And you saw this woman come out, it was super hot, she had a little tiny sundress on and flip-flops, she didn't really know where she was, she didn't really get home. So I had a great conversation with Sheriff Mendrick about maybe putting together a care package for these people with like a transportation doctor, and he said he's already working with a cab company on that, bottle of water. And I was also thinking about community service leads, you know, do you already have a brochure like that, or
At least a card or
a
something.
card?
Well, we
So
could
they'll
certainly
have
put
to
2-on-1 information.
Oh, 2-on-1.
2-on-1, yeah, that would be the best, that would be the best option, which is.
Good card.
To, you know, work with the sheriff's office to give these people hope when they
Sure.
leave the jail.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea because we have a lot of individuals that end up on corners seeking money. And at the
Yes.
city, I ended up having a postcard made through Loaves and Fishes, Hesed House.
That's a
All
great
of those
idea.
resources were on the card.
Right,
And
that's
then
what
when
we're
I
asking
was
for.
driving by and I saw someone, I would roll down the window and say, hey, here are places that can help you, and physically like gave that to the person.
Right.
We did have some people that were doing it on a business thing, not necessarily a need. So the police were kind of able to figure out who was there on the business spectrum versus on the need spectrum. But it's kind of nice because then if you pull up again and you see them there, I would always ask, did you go? You know, oh yeah, they helped me with this and to get an apartment and that kind of thing.
yeah.
So there's some good stories, but you need the tools to be able to hand it to them
Right.
and say, hey, this.
And when you do a
Reach out
care
to them.
package, here in this building, a friend of mine was leaving one night last summer, and a gentleman, a young man, early 20s, was released from jail. And he was dehydrated. He asked for her to use her phone, and she let him use the phone actually, but right here in the parking garage. But these people need to leave with something. Bottled water, advice on where to go for other help.
Right,
I would suggest you and I
Transportation.
follow up and can work with Mary. we can
Okay,
work with
that sounds
Jim,
good.
we'll
And
follow
I'm
up.
working, and I'm talking with Jim too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this, we've been talking to the state's
Okay.
attorney, so
Yeah.
there's a whole conversation going on between him and Sheriff Pepper.
And this might be something you could work with Mike Berry from Just DuPage as well. You know, do you know Mike?
I do.
Okay, yeah. Just, you know, he's helping rehabilitate and helping.
Well, I'm working with the sheriff, and he can work, you know. All right, thank you.
okay. And just so you're aware, we do have a closet of sort of basics that we know. I would prefer that individuals who are being released from custody of the jail, they receive whatever goods they're going to receive at the jail instead of making people come over into the 421 building, come upstairs. If I prefer a system where it's handled there.
Correct.
Yeah, you
So
know,
we
in
can give
fact,
them any information.
Jim and I are talking about having a clothing drive in October for jail inmates being released. Because if you're, you know, brought in during the winter,
Right.
you don't have summer clothes, or vice versa, you know? Although the
But
average
for
age
other
is-
individuals who sort of walk in and are homeless, we do have some basic toiletries, that kinds of things that are,
That's a good idea.
someone from our information referral division a couple of years ago asked if we could put something together. So we do have some kind of basics in a closet. We have a kind of a checklist, you know, so they can indicate what they want, just, you know,
Do you want
toothpaste,
police inmates to come to
shampoo.
your office?
No.
I'm just joking.
Well, they do. I mean, they do.
Okay.
Individuals coming from jail have in the past been told to come to Community
But
Services.
the
So-
ideal thing would be.
Handle it, right, handle it there. Yeah. Also, folks get released at all hours of the day.
That's right.
Sometimes at midnight. We're certainly not here, so. Okay,
Well,
so,
apparently, and it's a dicey situation because once they leave custody, the sheriff can't do anything anymore because they're not in his custody. So the timing of when they get
Mhm.
help, things, items, clothes, bottled water is very short. The time period is very short, you know what I mean? Sorry.
No, that's okay. We can
Okay,
we'll continue
discussion.
this discussion.
all right, so, got this, can you put this slideshow up? So today I am presenting the Department of Community Services 2024 budget request. Next slide there. So for those of you who have not been through this before, I always like to give some context. The Department of Community Services actually has 20 different budgets. 2 of them are from the general fund. 1 is a special revenue fund, and 17 are state and federal grants. And so during the county's budget discussion, we really only talk about 3 of our 20. The other 17 come through this committee, and I will send these slides to everybody at the end of the presentation when I get back to my desk. Or Karen will send them actually. And I did send the spreadsheets on Friday with all the numbers broken down for you, but I will kind of go through them at a high level. So overall, our if you take all of our funding for the department, our total FY23 budget is just under $30 million. Of that, 3.4 million comes from the general fund. So about 11.5% of our total department budget comes from general fund. Our total payroll is just over 11 million, 1.8 million of which comes from general fund. So about just under 16% of our total payroll is covered by the general fund. So first, and just as a reminder, so that we do manage about $30 million a year in an average year. Since 2020, there's another $105 million that has been managed by the Department of Community Services. So we're all very tired. It's been quite a whirlwind the last couple of years. So and so those are sort of outside of the other discussion. So
Mary,
Yeah.
quick question, when will those fall off?
it depends.
25?
It depends. All the CARES Act money is mostly done. I think CDBG, CV finishes up in 23. I think there's a whole bunch of different funds. There's one, the home ARP, which is for affordable housing, is about $6.4 million. That doesn't expire until 2030. So we're at various stages, but I would say the majority of them are probably done by 2026. Some of them have been, fully expended already. So it's why I don't include it in that first slide, because it's, the numbers are all over the place in all kinds of different years. But we're still actively managing them. So the first general fund budget I'll talk about is $1,750. It's our sort of general fund. It funds a number of different positions. Many of the management positions in community services are funded out of this fund because those managers are responsible for maybe 5 or 6 different grant programs, and so we fund those out of general fund. They charge any time they can into those individual grants, but their actual headcount is located in this budget. So the overall change is a 4% increase of about $108,000. Significant variations here. There is one, I submitted one new initiative for 2024. I am requesting one additional headcount. I'd like to add a housing and community development planner who would work in the community development unit. Right now we have, I think, 4 planners and 1 senior planner in that unit. They all work on affordable housing and community development. I'm assuming that there will be initiatives that are going to come out of the ad hoc committee on housing solutions. If we're looking at things like land banks, or if we're doing any kind of financing mechanisms, that's the unit in my department that has the level of expertise to be able to manage that. But we can't charge that time to grants. And so if we add a planner, that will free up resources kind of in that whole division. That planner can manage both grants and general fund activities, as can the other planners. So I think if we increase that headcount by 1, it will improve our capacity to respond to whatever the board chooses to do. I'm expecting applause at the end of my. So you know.
Yeah, I think we have some employee awards.
Employee, yeah.
So that's a new initiative. Other changes, salary, that salary line is up about 5%. That's primarily because as we project salaries, we'll probably have fewer positions in this budget that are able to charge off to some of those expiring grants. And so we'll need to reabsorb those costs into, so for example, my salary, right now I'm funded out of general fund. I charge time to community development, but I'm also charging a fair amount of time to ARPA right now. And so as some of those activities ramp down, I won't be able to charge as much time next year. So that's an example. Other things we're anticipating are an increase in our need for interpreters as we get, more as 211 calls go up. We'll be using interpreters more. We're also being charged with things like copy paper, postage. The philosophy of the finance committee is that they're now sort of separating those expenses by department rather than absorbing them overall in an operations budget. There's also a pretty significant decrease in the estimate for our paratransit expense. Last year, I had estimated a much higher increase from 22 to 23. We did see an increase, but we did not see the level of increase that I anticipated. And so now we're down from 23 to 24. We're still up if you compare it to 2022. Next slide. Next is our family center budget. This is the general fund, the portion of the general fund specific to the family center across the street. We're looking at an overall 2.7% increase. Really, the increase is reflective of salary increases that took place sort of in the spring of 2023. And as well as some adjustments. We have a new administrator who's making a different salary than the previous administrator. So now we've got 12 months, an expected 12 months of those. Other than that, I don't think there were any really significant variances in that. An upgrade to our electronic filing system of about $3,000. That's really the only significant thing. And then finally, the neutral exchange budget. So neutral exchange also supports the family center. Neutral exchange is a special revenue fund. Anyone who is filing any sort of civil action over at the court's office paid. It's one of the fees attached to the filing. It is specifically for the neutral exchange program. Overall, we're looking at almost a 9% decrease of about $25,000. Primarily, that's driven by the fact that when that building was built, as you might know, the state's attorney has one side of the building and the community services department has the other side of the building. When that building was constructed, the state's attorney covered about half of the cost and community services covered half of the cost. And community services covered our portion of the cost in 2 ways. The first was a portion of that building was eligible under the Community Development Block Grant Program. And so we provided, I want to say, I should have looked it up. I think it was about $1.3 million towards the construction of that building. And then there was an agreement that we would take $40,000 a year for 10 years out of this filing fee, out of this budget, and put it towards basically sort of paying off our portion of the building construction. So we've now paid that off. And so we no longer have to absorb that $40,000 expense, which is great news because filing fees have been down. And so our new administrator, Tori Kappas, is really looking for ways to boost revenue for the family center because, as I said, the filing fees are down. We did have I hesitate to say a healthy reserve. We had a moderate reserve in that fee, but we've been kind of chipping away at it, particularly with that $40,000 a year expense. And so, so we're working towards figuring out ways to produce revenue for the family center. That's all. So it's just, you know, kind of in summary, we're looking at a couple of modest increases in the general fund, you know, a satisfying decrease in the special revenue fund. You all have the Karen printed out legible.
Can I get a copy of that?
Yeah. Karen, do you have this?
Yeah.
The big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here, Gary, I'll give you this one. Any questions for, go ahead. Ian.
So you had mentioned the family center. Are you guys looking into charging it fees for mediation or anything in the future? Okay, that's cool. And the second thing I just wanted to make a great comment is this is so helpful. Like I love how easy this is to read. And I
You
just
mean the
wanted-
size of it or the notes?
Well, the notes especially. That's really helpful. I know. And I just wanted to make a comment that you're actually -2. You're actually under budget. Technically using all three. If you
Oh, right.
combine all three, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's great.
I did, yeah, because two of them are general fund and one is
One's
sort of a
special.
separate, you know,
Right.
separate thing, but yes, overall it's.
Any other questions right now for Mary? Yeah, I have a question for this committee. And there's only 3 of you here, but Eden, I appreciate you being here too. So we used, I believe it's ARPA money or ARPA interest for the Small Human Services Fund, which is $1,050,000. So that's really, it's a 1-year thing. So how does this committee feel? Because community services used to have a line item.
It was a separate budget,
It was a set, what budget was it?
1,000.
But it was community services.
It was under the direction of community
Right,
services. It was a separate budget item or a separate line,
So my question is
separate account.
because this is a 1-year thing, would we encourage the rest of the board to continue this or not? Because it would probably fall, like Mary said, it would probably fall under this, this organization.
So I think my initial answer at a high level is absolutely. I think it's gonna help us to see what, I guess I was a little disappointed that District 3 only had 100,000 asked. You know, we're working, I know Lucy is also working diligently to try to support like the Willowbrook Corners and try to, some of the initiatives are like a tutoring program and things like that. And I kept asking, like, is there a tutoring service that we could give this grant to, but we couldn't come up with one. So like, I don't know, I'm like talking in circles, but like my gut is I love the program. I'm just a little disappointed that like District 3 didn't get we don't even know if the 100,000 is eligible. So like there are other things that I would love to be able to grant money to in our district that, we couldn't find the right resources. So I don't know if there's a way that we could structure it slightly differently going forward.
Can I just say, I'll say 2 things. First of all, through the DuPage Community Transformation Partnership with the DuPage Foundation, there is some significant investments going on in the Willowbrook Corners area.
Okay.
So they are getting, that area is getting some fairly significant financial assistance through that
Okay.
partnership.
I just know, like, I'm working with Dan from Community House and like, and also with Dr. Hardy from Hinsdale South, and like, they're really desperate to get a tutoring program in place. And I talked to Dan at the Community House, and he said that they don't have it in their budget to supply.
Yeah, they're
tutoring.
getting more mental health. They're getting supports for mental health services down there. I can double check on what, but I know Community House is specifically getting transformation partnership funding specific for the Willowbrook Corners area.
I agree, but like
Yes.
in their budget, they don't have the budget space for like this tutoring program that the high school and some of the other people have said would be really beneficial.
So but the other thing I was gonna say is, recall the small grant program was for agencies under $300,000 specifically, so we were not duplicating
Mhm.
what was being done with DuPage Foundation. That DuPage Foundation partnership money will probably be all allocated in 2024 because of the ARPA deadline. And so moving forward from that, there would be no duplication. And, certainly it's up to the board to decide if you want to do something above and beyond what's happening with our partnership. But that's not long-term money. The hope is to create some capacity with those and also to leverage some private investment, which is happening at not a huge scale, but it's happening. So I think that there certainly is an opportunity and a need going forward.
So just to summarize my response, the answer is absolutely. Like, I just would love to see if we could tweak it so it's a little bit more balanced, or and I think once we go through the process, I know in 2 weeks we're going to talk. I think we'll have a better
I think
view
so,
of
too.
how to
This-
go forward.
And I know they used to have a program years ago but we haven't for a while, and this is new to everybody. So I think you're right. I think we're gonna.
What was,
I-
sorry,
but-
what was the old program?
The old program was called the Human Services Grant Fund. It was, we didn't have you had to have been in operation for 3 years. It'd be a 501c3 in good standing. The activities that were supported are basically the same as we're doing with the small agency grant program. The last year we had it, the caveat I will say, and what I found challenging with that was we had $1 million. We had 63 grants the last year. We did a sort of a ranking, but we had 20-ish, 25 agencies that got grants of like $2,500, $2,600, like really not making significant impact. And if you really look at, if you're really looking at what's going to have the most impact, and these are actual contracts for services, my philosophy and the philosophy of our partnership has been, let's make high impact grants that, are multi-year, that agencies can really count on. They can, they can fund a full, a couple of head count for a couple of years. But that's what the Human Services Grant Fund is. I will also add that I had, I did have a position that was dedicated to that. It was a general fund position that was dedicated to that. So
Is that position still here?
it is here, but it's not filled, or we may have repurposed it. I think we repurposed it.
So it
And
wouldn't be in your budget to refill
No.
it.
Well,
and you just can't manage that kind of a program without the staff to do it.
No, I agree. Yeah.
and I think the way we're doing it, at least right now, it's certainly very interesting to be able, as a county board member, to have hands-on ability to do these good things. I guess I would have to ask finance. I mean, this has been it's been a job for you guys to take it to the level that you've taken it so far. And if we continue to do this, if we put $1 million in our budget, we would still have to rely on you. And how would that affect your budget?
I think historically,
No, you do it.
No, you do it.
You do it. You do it.
I think historically, King has run that. We give her the $1
historically, she's
million
done it.
and she runs the program.
Well, and we try to get away from that mostly because of staff, but then the staff, the burden's on you.
And right now, we have, staff was here earlier at the meeting, we have some staff because of ARPA. So this year is easier for us. But in the out years, they're scheduled to be phased out over time. And so making a long-term commitment to it is equally problematic for us. So,
I will say and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
go ahead.
I will say that having the board members do the programmatic review that takes a huge burden off of staff. So what finance committee, not to minimize what finance is doing for this grant. They're going through and they're gonna make sure, did they submit their IRS letter of determination that they're a 501c3? Do we know that they're in good standing? Did they submit their 990 so that we, you know, those are like yes, no, pass, fail questions. And then does their program appear to fall within the right category, you know, an eligible category? And then it's up to you all to make any kind of subjective judgment that you want on who to fund. And that's really, and I will say the Human Services Grant Fund, we had a much more robust application process in terms of the questions that agencies were required to answer. There was a lot on collaboration, on non-duplication, you know, what sort of program, you know, what sort of data do you use to justify the need for your program or any modifications that you need to make. So it was a really intensive process. So it took enormous amounts of staff time.
Were you pleased with the amount of applications for this, you know, this grant?
72 or something like that.
Is that kind of what you anticipated based on like the work that you did with the other grant program?
Well, I gotta be honest, we don't have a lot of interface with agencies of under $300,000. Those are very small, very community-based organizations that, you know, the ones that we traditionally work with are, you know, Loaves and Fishes, People's Resource Center, PADS, Catholic Charities, Outreach Community Services, you know, Metropolitan Family Services. We tend to deal with like bridge communities, all those. We tend to deal with the larger agencies. So those ones that are very localized, we don't necessarily have a lot of connection to. We're certainly aware of them, but I don't have a good pulse on, you know, what are the small nonprofits working in Addison or working in Warrenville. So I didn't really know how many there would be. So I guess I'm pleased that there were 73. It doesn't surprise me that, you know, some districts have more than others. It's just kind of the, you know, nature of different communities, or maybe getting the word out, or, you know, there may be large agencies that operate like in District 3 that cover a lot of the things that, you know, that maybe there's not as many sort of voids or areas for other organizations to fill in. So I guess I'm pleased. I assumed it would be oversubscribed, which it is. I didn't think it would be perfectly balanced across the 6 districts. So,
Well, and your comment about historically community services not dealing with these lower, that's what makes this exciting to all of us, I'm sure. You know, the people that are down dirty, you know, volunteering and working in the communities. So I would like to see it keep it going. Obviously, we would, you know, community services has what, $3.4 million general fund budget, and this would add $1 million to that. But I would certainly seek the consensus of this committee to bring it up at, you know, our finance and our community services when Mary makes a presentation. But we would also need some feedback from finance. Certainly, if it was a one-year sort of thing, and, you know, yes, we can do it in 2024. We probably could do it in 2025, maybe not in 2026, or however that works. Are you having any hesitations at 1 year at a time?
Well, we do have ARPA interest money. So that's a financial, you know, that is an option for us.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, just back up what Mary's saying, when a lot of the ranking criteria, evaluation pieces come back to this group, it obviously becomes easier for us. But it's a little premature. I definitely want to see how things pan out in the next 2 weeks. We had a meeting to talk about going through things today. There are going to be multiple parties that are involved, not just our team, but the county auditor's office, the state's attorney. Before you guys see anything, they're going to have a look at everything also, just to make sure everything's clean and well organized. So that is a couple-week process. So we'll know better in 2 weeks. I think that'd be a good time for us to revisit it again, just on our end, how much time it's going to take.
Okay, thank you.
I will also say the Human Services Grant Fund, that was a year-to-year decision, you know.
Yes, yes, it was.
I think in 2008, it was eliminated and then it was brought back after the RTA tax. It was only brought back at a $500,000 level and it was bumped up to $1 million. So it was, I mean, it was always funded out of general fund. So it was eliminated in 2020. Was it,
remember what year it was.
I think that might have been 07.
We passed the 10.6 that went through that in that next budget, Human Service Grant Fund did not exist.
That would mean in like 2020, right? Yeah, that was in 2020. Yeah.
So we got the foundation partnership done, and then I don't know if that might have been a precursor to the passage of the FY21 budget, which did not then include the Human Service Grant Fund in it.
Right. I think.
It's hard to remember because there's so much ARPA money in.
I don't think we had HSGF in 2020. I think
I
it
don't
was
think we
cut.
did
It
either.
was cut in 2020, but then, you know, early in 2020, we got all that CARES Act
We were
money, and so we
spending all
were.
the CARES money on a
Yeah.
great deal of those items.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I just want to say that listening to this whole discussion, I think it would be best if we maybe put this off for a couple of weeks, because I would like to
Yeah.
see what the applications are, what we're talking to, and who's applying, and then maybe have another discussion at that point in time. I think that would be great.
Consensus?
I agree.
Okay. Thank you. Mary, did you have anything else on budget? Okay. On to old business. I do have some old business. If you recall at our last county board meeting, I brought up the fact that Mary, Paul, and I met with the township pantries. We met with the 501c3s, and then a week later, we met with the township. So I guess, obviously, Carrie, you're the only one here on this committee that, but Ina here, I'd like your opinion too. So after that meeting, we came to sort of a consensus that we would take that money that is earmarked for the Northern Illinois Food Bank produce program and take money out and give it to the townships directly that want it. That way they can buy their own produce. So we're going to discuss it more.
It's just gonna be the ones who want it, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're not taking it out of the
Mm,
contract.
No, I understand that. I'm not explaining it well, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So the thought was give the townships the option, if they so choose, to opt out of the Northern Illinois Food Bank produce program. We would then give them some sort of financial compensation that would be equivalent to reflective of the number of people they actually serve compared to all of the other pantries. So if they chose to opt out, they would get a check for, you know, however much, and then they would be out of the program. We would not reduce the Northern Illinois Food Bank contract because all of the food pantries want more food. So we would just ask them to redistribute that. Remembering that we have 1.75 million that's not been obligated yet. So anything that we gave to the townships that opted out would come from that pot.
When you did your visits, I mean, I heard a lot of the public comments and it seemed to be supportive of the Illinois Food Bank at the last meeting. Did you find that to be the case? Like, were you getting positive feedback?
Even from the townships, we had, Addison and York, I believe, were
The only ones,
the only, and what?
they were the only two, I think.
Yeah,
The
that,
only two that expressed concerns about it, Lyle, Winfield, and
Wayne,
Lyle, Wayne, and Milton were there and said that they had no issue.
yeah.
So if these, would it be those two that you would expect to opt out?
Those two were absolutely, but I felt like some of the others, even though they're happy, would join that. And I did talk to Lyle, they mentioned last week or a couple weeks ago, and then they just saw her today, and she says, we absolutely want to stay in.
Okay, so I guess just forgive me, I don't understand the whole process. If they didn't get the food from Illinois,
They would get the money and buy it themselves.
so but like who would they buy the food from?
It would be up to them.
They have to have the receipts and give it
Yeah.
to you, Mary.
Those are
I
up to
guess
them.
my question is, would it just be, are there good alternatives? Like, we don't,
The Addison Township Supervisor indicated that, I think there's someone, I don't know if they're in Addison Township, maybe that supplies local grocers.
okay,
So they were aware of a wholesaler.
so they've already identified a wholesaler that could
That was my,
replace.
okay. At least they identified that one exists. So
Okay.
whether,
And would their pricing be competitive?
So the idea is really it would be up to if the townships choose to opt out, then they would be making that decision of what they're going to buy and who they're going to buy it from. They would have to provide receipts back to finance to demonstrate that they were using the funding specifically for food. They could also make the decision that they wanted to buy frozen instead. Or that they wanted to just, or that they only wanted to buy protein. That would be up to them. But it would be trying to solve this concern by saying, you know what, if the majority are pleased with it, the ones that aren't, for whatever reason, we're just giving them the option to opt out.
Sure. And I'm not opposed to that. I'm just wondering, like, we want to prevent a situation where they're opting out and then they're finding that it's much more expensive because the economy of scale isn't there, things
Well,
like that.
I'll also point out, we are already giving direct financial contributions to all of the pantries, the townships and the nonprofits. So they're already purchasing whatever they want to supplement what they're getting from Northern Illinois.
So essentially what you just said, that means that they're just not going to be receiving additional food from Northern Illinois Food. Is that right?
Yes.
And I think what Carrie is also getting at is there are these checks and balances in place, because I think there are some reservations that now they have complete direct control over the money that we now give them, as opposed to the money that we gave to Northern Illinois Food Bank and the food that they provided, right? Because I live in York Township, and the kind of produce that I was seeing that day from the Northern Illinois Food Bank was amazing. So I just find it really interesting that it's just those two townships that are having this problem. So I'm assuming there are a lot of checks and balances in place. Yes?
Receipts.
We're already like I said, we're already giving them money. So we already have that established. I will say York, I think you were on the email last week. They got a shipment of cantaloupe, and they got a shipment. There were 6 or 7 different types of produce. Cantaloupe were bad, and there was no question the cantaloupe were bad. They sent an email that day to Northern Illinois Food Bank. Northern Illinois Food Bank had full replacements out the next morning. So, and NIFB was thrilled that they had reached out so that they could actually do something like real time to fix the issue. So,
Right.
but we are already, so it's not a new thing to be giving them direct funding. It would just be, they'd be getting more in exchange for opting out of NIFB.
And that money would be prorated, sort of prorated too, because they've already received
Right.
8 months or something like that of that Northern Illinois Food Bank produce. So this would be prorated for the rest of the calendar
For the,
year.
remaining calendar year, and proportionate to the percentage of services they're providing relative to everybody else.
And would that extend, if they opted out, would that extend beyond this calendar year?
I think, well, so the Northern Illinois Food, and I'm sorry to.
No.
I think the
no.
So the Northern Illinois Food Bank contract expires, I believe, in November, right? With
Yeah.
Mary Catherine, with this fiscal year. So we have to make a decision on what we're going to do with that 1.75 and what we're going to do for 2024. So that would be the decision point, I think, at which we would say, are we going to split money again? So there's a contract with NIFB, and then there's sort of smaller financial support for individual pantries. Are we going to give it all to NIFB? Are we going to separate the township? So those are all decisions that we'll need to be making probably in October, November.
We've given 1.5 million to all the food pantries to this point, not including the 1.75 to the Northern Illinois Food Bank for the food pantries. So
Yeah.
directly.
We've put a whole lot of money into food this year.
Thank you very much.
Okay, sure.
All right, any new business? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Thank you very much. Thank you.